सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Does the name Manjunath Shanmugam ring a bell? Don't reach for Google. I'll let you know soon enough who he was and why we are talking about him today. So what happens in our lives as journalists also, when you are searching for one thing, sometimes you stumble on something else. You find something else. A little bit of kahin pe nigahein, kahin pe nishana, but in a good sense. In a good sense, in a virtuous sense, in the sense that you might be searching for one story, you might be in the quest of one story, and you find another one. So when I was working, I was reading up all the paperwork, all the data, orders, etc., background, details, research on the release of murderers and gangsters in Gorakhpur, Amarmani Tripathi and his wife, who had been convicted for murdering a pregnant young poet. In the policy under which UP government released the Tripathis, they had released in this year 691 more life convicts. 691 more people serving a life sentence. The UP government made a policy in 2018 that they changed it. Finally, a life convict who spent more than 16 years of jail, has good conduct, is at least 60 years of age, 60 years or more in age, can be given remission of sentence and can go home now a free person. So 691 of these people have gone away. Now, immediately you get curious as to who these are. And of these 691, I found a man called Shivkesh Giri. Shivkesh Giri, also known with his nickname Lalla. So you can say Shivkesh Giri Lalla or Shivkesh Lalla Giri. Now, why is he important? And who is Manjunath Shanmugam? Now, I will take you back to 2005. Very famous or infamous case. Manjunath Shanmugam was working for IndianOil Corporation. He was a sales manager, like sales officer, A grade. So, sales officer in the topmost grade topmost officer grade. He was an Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow graduate. So he was working with IndianOil in Lucknow, and among his duties was also to keep an eye on quality control at petrol pumps. So he had found out through his investigations, very bright, young, as acknowledged by all his batchmates and colleagues, bright, young, idealistic man from Karnataka. In fact, he was brought up in Kolar town, which is a gold mining town, at the BAML school, at the Kendriya Vidyalaya at BAML colony there. BAML is Bharat Earth Mover Limited. His father was also a public sector employee, as Manjunath Shanmugam also became after passing from IIM Lucknow. Before that, he had passed his engineering at Jai Chamarajendra College of Engineering at Mysore. Now, he discovered that three petrol pumps in Lakhimpur Khedi, a distant part of Uttar Pradesh from Lucknow. Lakhimpur Khedi, by the way, hit our headlines when a bunch of farmers, Sikh farmers, had been run over by a minister's son's car there. That story we know about. I will also share with you some stories so you can get some background on that. So Lakhimpur Khedi is where he found out that three petrol pumps were selling adulterated fuel. So he carried out investigations and he ordered two to be shut down. Those two were shut down. He ordered those to be shut down for 3 months. Now, of course, these were owned by influential people or a Mittal family. So the Mittal family then agreed to pay a fine to IOC, Indian Oil Corporation. And because they paid the fine, the ban on them was lifted after just 1 month instead of 3 months. So they paid a fine of 75,000. So that might have happened, but he still suspected that they were continuing to adulterate fuel. He got his information and he carried out raids there. He went back there, brave guy. He went there in 2003 and carried out raids there. Remember, he was only 27. He carried out raids there. he picked up samples. And after picking up samples, he made the mistake of telling the petrol pump owner that he had again found out that they were selling adulterated oil, and he was going to report on them yet again. After that, he was going back to his hotel room. He was to go back to his hotel room in a small place near Lakhimpur Khedi called Gola Gokaran Nath. So he was to go back to his hotel. Somebody probably offered him a ride. Later, his body was found in the back of his car with 6 bullets inside it. So he had been shot 6 times and left in a car. In fact, as it later turned out, his murderers had tried to dispose of his body but had not been able to do it for whatever reason. His father kept on trying to reach him. When his father did not hear from him, he sent him a message. That message wasn't answered. That's when his father raised an alarm and a search started, and his body was found. So his body was found. After that, there was a big furor because he was an IIM Lucknow graduate. And they had all been sensitized by this time. Remember, this was 2005. The day of his murder was 19 November 2005. But by 2005, the IIT, IIM community and generally Indian public opinion had been sensitized because just a couple of years earlier, they had seen a similar assassination, murder of Satyendra Dubey, an IIT graduate working on the National Highway project in Bihar. I will give you a little bit on that also as we go along. So because that awareness level was already strong, and some sense of organization already existed among the IIT and IIM graduates across the country, they again got together, ran a very powerful campaign to get justice for Manjunath Shanmugam's family and to bring his murderers to book. That led to quick investigations, quick trial. In fact, in the trial court, usually the hall was filled with members of the Manjunath Shanmugam Trust that a couple of really well-meaning people, Anjali Mulati and H. Jaishankar, wife and husband, they set up. They were not of the same batch. They were IIM graduates, but not the same batch as Manjunath Shanmugam. They were actually 10 years senior. But they set up this trust. Trust members came to the court. That also ensured that the trial took place quickly and people were sentenced. So initially, 8 were sentenced. 1 was sentenced to death. That was Paman Kumar Monu Mittal, the owner of the petrol pump or the owner's son. He was sentenced to death. Others were sentenced to life imprisonment. In the High Court, the death sentence, because in any case, the death sentence is subject to confirmation by the High Court. In the High Court, the death sentence was commuted to life sentence. The remaining 8, 2 were acquitted because the High Court thought that there wasn't sufficient evidence against them because nothing had been recovered from them. So 2 were allowed to go free, but others were serving a life sentence. Of those killers, 1, that is Shivkesh Giri, also known as Lalla, that's the name we mentioned to you just a while back. He was released in January and that went completely under the radar. Nobody noticed it. Nobody connected that with the Manjunath Shanmugam story. That's what happens with the passage of time. Now, by reading up on the Tripathi family case, I got curious about who are these 691 who've been released. And now I think we'll be scouring that list even more carefully over the next few days to see if we find any other interesting names. Now we've seen this murderer walk free in what looks like very quick time. Papers have already been moved for the release of another of these murderers, that is Vivek Sharma. So I'll give you the names of the people whose convictions were confirmed by the High Court and by the Supreme Court. Monu Mittal, who initially got death sentence that got commuted to life by High Court. Devesh Agnihotri, Shivkesh Giri Lalla, who's just been released. Rajesh Verma, Vivek Sharma, whose papers for release have been moved, and Rakesh Kumar Anand. Now, what's happening in UP is, while you can understand the sentiment that people should not be in jail forever, 16, 18 years, if they behave well, you should think that they've been reformed. After all, jails are also called Sudhar Ghar in some of the states. So maybe they've got sudhrod, maybe they've got reformed. But still, to think about the gravity of an offense and to see these people just walking out and what happens now to the witnesses who might have stood up against them, what happens now to the prosecutors, prosecuting lawyers, the policemen, etc. This is walking free too soon after being held guilty of cold-blooded murder. Because if this goes on, then who knows, in the next year or 2 years, even Monu Mittal may walk free. Now, what's happening in UP is since this policy came in, so while under the policy, on certain special days in a year, these remissions take place. Now, the number of those days is increasing. Now, remissions take place not just on Independence Day or Republic Day. There are new days being added, Teachers' Day, for example, International Day for Tolerance, Human Rights Day, etc. So now you see the stream of lifers who are leaving prisons as free people. You can read more about this in a story that Antara Barua has written for us. I'm sharing a link with you. That said, since we talked about Satyendra Dubey, so just to refresh your memory, just a couple of years before this, Satyendra Dubey, an IIT Kanpur graduate, who was after IIT Kanpur, he went to IIT BHU for his MTech Civil Engineering. He joined Indian Engineering Service. He joined देश की सेवा करने के लिए, to serve the nation. He joined Indian Engineering Service and he was working with National Highway Authority, partly earlier in a place called Kodarma, which is now in Jharkhand, and near Gaya. He found that there was a lot of hera-pheri, lot of corruption going on in the construction of the section of the Golden Quadrilateral of which he was in charge. So again, a young man. In fact, he got assassinated on his 30th birthday. On his 30th birthday, on 27th November 2003. So he started raising questions and taking strong action against his contractors. His action even got at least 3 engineers suspended. That is not something that you usually do to contractors in Bihar. And this is Bihar of 2003. So he got many threats and he wrote one letter to the Prime Minister's office. Mr. Vajpayee was then the Prime Minister. So this story was broken by the Indian Express, which 2 years later also took the lead in the coverage of the Manjunath Shanmugam murder. So his letters, he said, listen, I've been writing these letters to you. There is no action being taken, but also I've been telling you that my life is in danger. So don't pass these letters around to Highways Department or this department or that department, because if it leaks that I am passing this information or I am making appeals to Prime Minister's office to act against corruption, my life will be in danger. But it looks like letter leaked, and in the course of time, he was killed. How did he die? Nobody listened to him. He had gone for a wedding to Varanasi. He was coming back. He came to Gaya. It's like the movies. It's like the movies or one of those OTT serials you keep watching these days. He comes back from Varanasi. He gets out of the train in Gaya. His car has not reached the railway station to receive him because apparently the car had a battery problem. So there he is, engineer Saab standing outside with his briefcase, and he hails a rickshaw. So he's on his rickshaw. That is when he is shot. In fact, his body is also not found for a long time. Later, his body is found on the rickshaw. The rickshawala has absconded. So the police comes in. Police catch the rickshawala, and soon enough they say, we haven't found very much on the rickshawala. They release him, and then they can't find the rickshawala for a month after that because rickshawala disappears. Only reason of suspicion of the rickshawala was that he was found in possession of Satyendra Dubey's phone. That phone did not function for 15 days. Then apparently the rickshawala switched it on to call his second wife in some place, and that's when the police caught him. So they released him. They said they found nothing on him, and then he disappeared. Then because of the pressure, because IIT graduates all got together and the media got into the act big time, led by the Indian Express at that point, the case was handed over to the CBI. As the case was handed over to CBI, other suspects were caught. So 2 other suspects called Shivnath Shah and Mukendra Paswan were questioned by the CBI. And then hold your breath, because I will tell you what happened. They were questioned by the CBI and they were let go. Within 24 hours, both of them were found dead. Dead, right? So everybody believed, and I still think quite rightly, that somebody put them away because they knew too much. So the really powerful people who wanted to save their own backsides and necks, they put them away. The CBI, on the other hand, said, look, after our investigations, we found that both of them died by suicide. Now, I have seen many things covering crime in my life, but I have not seen one case in which 2 suspects interrogated by the CBI died by suicide both of them within 24 hours of being freed, because CBI's methods, if anything, are not physical. You can't even say they were tortured or subjected to third degree, etc., because those are not the methods of CBI. So both died, evidence over. Now noise continued, pressure continued, and again in the course of time, by 2004, September 2004, another 4 suspects were arrested. That is Uday Malla, Mantu Kumar, who's supposed to be the shooter who pulled the trigger on Mantu Kumar, who's supposed to be the shooter who pulled the trigger on Satyendra Dubey, Tutu Kumar and Bablu, and also later the CBI arrested Sarwan Paswan. And you know what? Again, breathtaking. CBI said this was a case of pure robbery. No one higher up was involved. No contractor was involved. These guys, poor guys, silly guys, car didn't come. He took a rickshaw. He was carrying a briefcase. So these guys thought he must be carrying money or something valuable in his briefcase. They wanted his briefcase. He refused to part with his briefcase. Instead of handing over his briefcase peacefully, he made the mistake of fighting these guys. So what choice did they have? They shot him. This drama doesn't end. While these trials are going on, the shooter Mantu Kumar, on one of his court appearances in Gaya in September 2005, he escapes from court. Right? Who can escape from a court under the CBI's watch like this in a CBI trial? But he escaped from court. Later, he was caught. 3 persons were finally convicted. Mantu Kumar, Uday Kumar, also another one called Pinku Ravidas. And it was dismissed and written off purely as a case of robbery. Now, CBI officers who handled this, the CBI director at that point, I don't know how it sits on their conscience. Because if you look at this case from any angle, it does not look like robbery, because if it's a case of robbery, then 2 of the 2 first suspects do not die by allegedly or supposedly by suicide within 24 hours of being released after a CBI interrogation. And again, the key suspect, the supposed shooter, does not escape from court while a trial is going on. So all of this, if you look at the story, nothing adds up. I thought it's important for me to bring this story also back to you when we talk about Manjunath Shanmugam, because these are people who made big sacrifices. They also were hailed as national heroes. They featured big time in popular culture. The big popular singer Ravi Shergill has actually featured both of them in one of his famous and hit songs, basically as a lament saying, when will you come back? Can people like you ever come back? Can we ever be fair to people like you?